do a backup.
Hey, are we going to act like we've done this before, or is this our first time? What are we
No,
playing?
I think we should. I think we should admit
Just
failure.
keep it real? Yeah, I think that's good.
I mean, I think we should just make it authentic. So Matt and I, we've done a lot of shows with people that we've known for decades. So it's
Uh-huh.
like, I think it's, I mean, yeah, like we know each other better now
Yeah,
and
transparency is awesome.
yeah,
That's
rock and
always good.
roll.
So and yeah, since this is a leadership show, and guys, welcome to another episode of Leadership Show at National Team and Character Development Leadership Show. I got Eddie Penney here, who's a Navy SEAL, and we had a call last week. On election day, actually, and it's turned into election month here. But yeah, I somehow did not record this. My software updated, and then yesterday we were going to try to schedule it again. And right before I was going to treatment, I uh, I hit update and left the house and came home, and my computer was still updating during the time that we were trying to record this. So now we finally got recording. We got good internet connection, and welcome. Good to have you, Eddie. Thanks for jumping back on. We appreciate you, and sorry to take up your time like that.
Not a problem at all. Thanks for having me. I enjoy our discussion. So let's do another one. It's totally cool.
All right. Well, like I said, this was a show that was designed to give our athletes and our national team guys some just some tips on how to become a better leader, how to become a better follower, character development. So, Rick, do you want to give Eddie a good introduction here? And we'll
Yeah,
start
sure.
some
Actually,
questioning.
what I'll do is let me plug this headset in too, so I get the audio as clear as possible. But I should have done this earlier. But yeah, so uh, indulge me for just a half a second here.
Well, you know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to tell everybody to click subscribe and get your notifications. So when these shows get published on YouTube, you know it's coming, and it helps get our ranking up so more people can see these too. So go ahead and subscribe
Well,
and
and
hit the
And
follow,
as we get
guys.
going too, if Eddie, if people wanted to follow you and keep in touch with what you have going on, where can they find you on the various different connections of the world?
I'd say probably the biggest one, biggest following is on Instagram is Eddie.Penny. That's probably the best way to go. And then if you want to follow Contingent Group, the company for security and safety tips, that's always gives good situational awareness for free. So we're not, I mean, we do push products obviously, but it's great information. All you got to do is see what the tips are. We usually put out, I'd say 3 to 5 tips or post a week. So that'd be the best one. That's just at Contingent Group. So Instagram's our big platform right now.
Awesome. So it's a good spot. Maybe I'll try to introduce you a little bit, but I don't think I'm really capable of providing you a valid introduction of that actually does you justice of your background. But for the guys who are tuning in, wrestling community, wrestling fans, Eddie Penney is a true American hero. He's a U.S. Marine, U.S. Navy SEAL, and not just with the SEAL teams, but on SEAL Team 6 and the Gold Team. And maybe as we talk a little bit more, Eddie, you can share with us what it means to be on Gold Team. What is that for the communities that don't understand that background? But he's a true American hero. Done countless deployments overseas. Now runs his own company, and he has also the way I knew him. I saw what he was able to do in training young generations of guys to train for the SEAL program when I was in Dallas, and I got to see firsthand the influence that he was having on these young guys chasing their dreams to be elite. And it was impressive. I didn't know his whole background at the time, but I could see that there was something special about Eddie and what he was doing to train these young men to not just be badass physical specimens and just killers, just kicking ass, but also to develop men, to develop character, and to train them to be on the right path that happens before you enter that physical arena. So it's a true honor to have him here and to learn from him and his experience. Matt and I talk a lot about, maybe some of the parallel between what some of the wrestling community guys might share with some of the special operations community guys in terms of just, the commitment to elite level excellence, not just off the mat, but in physical training. There's not a lot of money involved. You're not doing it to get rich. You're doing it for the right reasons. And those reasons are espoused by the heroics that you guys have demonstrated and provide examples to all of us to be inspired from. So without further ado, it's our honor to have you. If you could share a little bit about your story and who you are and how you got to be where you're at.
Well, I think you took all the thunder right there, buddy. No, I appreciate the introduction. Like Rick was saying, I did 4 years in the Marines. I was 17, turned 18 in boot camp. Didn't tell anybody, obviously. So I did 4 years. About my 3-year mark, I made the decision to switch, and that was because I failed. Yes, I failed by getting into sniper school for the Marines, which is a story in itself, but I failed multiple times by one shot every single time. So, God kind of puts us on a path, even though sometimes we're like, wait a second, you don't know better. I do. And we're just fools. And I was a fool. So, decided to make that switch after 6 months of crying to myself. And then it's like, hey, I'm going to go for my true dream job when I was a child, and that was the SEAL team. So after 4 years, I was out one day because I had to do processing, drug testing, all that crazy stuff. And then I went into the Navy and then went straight to BUDS after a quick school up in Great Lakes, and then went to Team 2. And then after a couple deployments with Team 2, went to Naval Special Warfare Development Group and did a few years there, which was awesome. Met great men. And after that, my last couple of years, I got custody of some of my children. And so I had to go to a non-deployable unit, but I wanted to finish my career and retire. So that's where you and I met out in Dallas. So ran kind of the training for individuals that want to go do special programs in the Navy, and did 3 years there, and then retired. And then in that 3 years, finished my degree in security management and started a risk mitigation company called Contingent Group, which focuses more on international, but expats that are traveling around the world. Every country's different, and with the network that I developed in the military, obviously helped to that. So, and now just doing stuff like this and speaking events or whatever. I mean, it changes every day, it seems like, but that's pretty much it. Just kind of staying flexible and just loving life as best as we can.
So you were a swimmer too, right?
Yeah, I swam in high school. Yeah, I quit football because I didn't hit puberty until probably I think 25. So I was a small guy, and I went to my dad. I was like, hey, I can't. These guys are huge. It was 8th grade. I'll never forget it. And we were about to go into the 9th grade. I'm like, man, these guys are so big. I mean, I was going to be riding the bench, and I was like, hey, I just don't. And I quit there, but it led me to swimming. And about friends like, hey, let's try swimming in the first practice. I was like, I'll try it. I swam 25 yards. I know 25 yards, that's nothing. But to me at that time, I felt like I just swam the Atlantic Ocean. So, but I was like, I loved it. It was a challenge. I was like, it was a workout. I'm like, let's do this. Let's go.
Yeah. So for guys who can't really see this in the Zoom thing, Eddie Penney right now, he's gigantic. He's a physical specimen. He's not that sophomore kid you just described. He's wider than any person I've ever seen in person. He's jacked. And so something happened after that time. I don't know what it was. You were working hard and getting after it. And now it looks like on Instagram, we see you're actually getting into some combatives. You're getting into the boxing world.
Yeah, starting to do the MMA things. You grapple a couple times a week, and then do the striking a couple times a week. It's fun. It's like just switching it up. I kind of dropped the weight, so the 225 me is now down to like 205, 210 me. But I feel much better, and I'm happy with it. I was like kind of missing that size, but if I can move better and do the combatives better, it's all worth it. So yeah, it's all about protecting the family, protecting self, and just staying healthy and being happy. And that's my happy place right now. So that's where I'm staying.
So one of the things that we talk about on the show and in Greco and wrestling a lot is the balance that wrestlers are kind of have to be taught from the very young ages, and certainly to the high levels on the Olympic teams, of managing that dichotomy, that balance between being an absolute warrior and a savage and a barbarian on the mat, because it's hand-to-hand combat. And at the world levels that the mats guys are going at, you have a furious human being from Iran, from Russia, who's trying to kill you on the mat, and right. You got to unleash that beast and be that barbarian. but then being being an upstanding citizen off the bat and flipping that switch. And so that was one of my first questions I had kind of like prepped. I wanted to ask you about, because, SEALs, you guys are representative of America. You guys have to maintain military discipline and represent the organizations well. How did you do this as an individual? But then when you train guys later in your career and you're mentoring them, how do you guide them to balance being that alpha male barbarian that's then contained and channeled enough to strike that balance with character development, but being a killer when needed and being a furious opponent, about a leader off the mat? How do you guys manage that? Because you got to cultivate that raw barbarian in the guys too, because that's the nature of the world.
Right. No, that's an amazing question. The switch, which I'm sure we all have different names, but I like to refer to it as the switch. When you're training, you're back in the States, you're relatively safe. I mean, we're speaking from the military term. Obviously, we're playing with demolitions, guns. We're doing combatives, all the stuff. Same thing as wrestling, right? We're in the combative world. There comes that time where you got to push it enough, but you also got to self-preserve yourself, because if you're taken out of the fight, now you can't contribute to the team. So there's that balance, and you got to balance the family, you got to balance your nutrition, you got to balance your training, you got to balance your sleep. I mean, and whatever your job is, you're going to school, it's a lot to take in. So you have to find that balance. But at the same time, and this is just my experiences, I remember doing all the things that I just said back here in the States, and then we get on our C-17s to head over to Iraq or Afghanistan. And as soon as that ramp would drop down, you would just smell the country, burnt trash, or it just has a different smell. And every other country can, has a different smell or a different feel or whatever. But it was like that. As soon as the ramp dropped, I'll never forget it. I started walking down that ramp, and there's like, bam, all right, savage mode just got, turned on. And that was always my switch. And it still doesn't mean I went to crazy mode or whatever. Just like, I know I'm in a hostile environment. If it's, say, you're walking on a mat, or you're walking to the block for swimming, or you're walking on the football field, whatever you want to put in there, into the boardroom to give a presentation or to go over litigation stuff, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It all applies, because it all starts right here that I've discussed before, is mindset. I'm a huge mindset guy. And you've got to learn to turn that on, turn it off, and it's got to be on at the right time. It's got to be in neutral at the right time. It's got to be ready to pounce at the right time. It's got to be like, okay, I'm good here right now. We can kind of lay off the gas and rejuvenate the body, because if you're at that all the time, you are going to crash. And I remember the deployments, because you're on that all the time. I mean, you're waiting for mortars to come in, random sniper fire, whatever it may be. Your convoy getting ambushed, the helicopter gets shot down. I mean, you can house being blown up. So you're turned on that whole deployment. And when you're coming back to the States and that ramp drops down again, it is like all this weight just falls, and you literally want to go touch the American soil and just hug it the best you can. I mean, just cuddle up to it. I mean, it's such a great feeling. But yeah, you need to turn it on, and it's the same way whatever your arena is. I mean, if it's wrestling, it's on the mat. If it's in the boardroom, it's in the boardroom. That's your arena. So you just got to learn to, and that comes with experience as well. It's not like, oh, I'm going to read this book, but books do help, absolutely. Speaking events, podcast, personal experience is going to develop you into that leader, that warrior, whatever that Coliseum is for you. And that just kind of develops you. So, but yeah, there is that switch, and you need to recognize that switch, because some people need to hear certain music that was like, okay, I'm amped. Some people need to read. Some people need to talk to somebody, like a motivating speaker, a motivational speaker, or a friend, or a loved one. It all works different for all of us. So, there isn't this cookie cutter solution. We just got to find that is for that individual, and make sure we implement that in our, when we're going out there on the battlefield, whatever our battlefield may be.
Yeah, that sounds like what I refer to as activation. Is you're trying to activate and usually use like a trigger. Like for me personally, I didn't want to get that anxiety before combat, so I'd activate right when we touch hands, and that was like the referee would bring you onto the mat, come onto the mat, and then as soon as you shake hands, I was ready to go. And then when I did it in fighting, there was another when they dropped that pin in the cage, it was like, okay, he can't get out. that was the thought that went into my head was, okay, he's locked in here with me. And that's when I would activate. I wouldn't, because they do all the announcements, in this corner, and blah, blah, blah. And, you don't want to get anked up too early. So for you, it was about as soon as that gate dropped and you
Yeah.
walked off. And I mean, it's that visual, it's that mental image for me. I'm seeing that when
And
you're
you
talking
just said
about
it right now, probably maybe not even realizing. You said when that pin dropped on that cage, he's in here with me, he can't get out. You could totally turn that around and be like, we can't get out, or I'm stuck in here with him. And that right there, in my opinion, changes your mindset 100%. So right there, I mean, that just shows how I look at it, my internal thoughts, like, oh, he's in here with me. Why is he in here with you? Because you own him. You know what I mean? So that's what you're telling yourself. Therefore, you're going to act accordingly. But that could be easily reversed, like, shit, I have to do this. I'm stuck in here with him. Do you see how that could just change right there? I mean, that would jack you up. And I'm sure there's been those times. I know I've had those times where that ramp dropped on a target or something, be like, man, this doesn't look good. They out of imaging I've seen and intelligence I've heard, we might get our asses handed to us. But you just be like, no, I'm owning you, and that's what you got to do. That's how you play. I mean, you just perfect example right there.
Rick, does that sound like what we talk about a lot? The opportunity versus the obligation. I have to do this training. We got to make weight, like we got to get overseas. It's like I get the opportunity to do these things, and I get the opportunity to represent my country. And you've been able to represent your country on the battlefield, which is a lot different than sport. It is, but we can learn a lot of lessons
100%.
about what you've done. We have a big wrestling in the United States, in Greco-Roman specifically. We have a lot of Marines and a lot of Army athletes. They support our programs really well. 60% of our national team is made up of militaries. And I've even had some guys that one of them right now is he retired from wrestling and decided to serve his country, and he's going through buds right now. He just finished, and I don't know exactly where he's at in the process, other than his twin brother, who's still here training with me, said all he's got left is one more phase of training, and it's
so he's in the second phase. He's in dive training if he's got one more left.
Yeah. And apparently he lost, I mean, I saw a picture, he lost all the skin on top of his head from carrying rafts around.
Yeah. Isn't that sweet of him?
It's like his hair is gone and his skin is gone.
Yeah.
His
shoulders will be gone in 10 years too, so don't worry about that.
Wow. Yeah, guys, when both you guys said the same thing, I tapped in the same, as soon as Matt said that guy can't get out. Like Eddie, my brain was saying, I was like, man, that's what's special about you, Matt. Like that is the killer instinct. There's a lot of people, just like Eddie, like the majority of people would have said, oh shit, I can't get out of here. But I don't think, I mean, Matt, I've known you for about 10 or 11 years. I don't think your brain works in any other way other than like, he can't get out. And that's special. I mean, like I think that's exactly what you talked about, opportunities versus obligations. And, so Eddie, that's where that came from when I did that confinement mission with NASA.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the lessons that I took away from it, was the change in mindset in terms of how to be a good teammate with a good attitude, was looking at because every day in mission, something went wrong if you chose to look at it as going wrong.
Right.
And I said at some point I flipped the switch from a negative attitude to a positive one, and saying, I don't have to do this. I get to do this. And looking at it from a different perspective of, this is an opportunity to do this thing, even if the opportunity is to practice being patient in a shit show of the moment, as opposed to an obligation of, I got to do this thing. It changed everything. And so we talk about that a lot in the context of like teamwork and being a good follower and being a good leader. How does that, how do you look at that balance between teamwork and followership and leadership? Because the SEALs you guys have a reputation for being extremely confident, you know, very
Sometimes
good at what
confused
you.
with cockiness.
Yeah, I was gonna leave the hair gel jokes out and stuff like that. But like, you know, I got a couple of my dive buddies are PJs and Rangers, so they told me all sorts of things to say to you guys. But you know, you guys
We've
have
heard
that
it all.
yeah, so you guys have a reputation for being very confident, and wrestlers do too. But at the same time, right? There's also the ethos of humility that's embedded in that you guys train guys with. So again, it's that balance between the barbarian and sort of, lack of a better word, the gentleman. But like, you know, how do you guys train guys, and what do you say to guys trying who are in that younger phase and teenagers, 20s, trying to learn to calibrate that balance between, you know, uh, putting the team first and being a good teammate, that service leadership, but also maintaining being that alpha male, being that harnessing that confidence to drive forward. Because at the end of the day, it's just them out there on the mat. It's just there's nowhere to turn. And how do you guys do that? How do you train your guys?
You know, it kind of happens naturally. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some individuals and they get called individuals like in training, like, hey, quit being an individual, because they work on themselves before, say, the boats, for example, making sure the boats are good or they're dressed up clean or whatever they're supposed to be before you come out for inspection. And then you work on yourself, like, hey, take care of yourself, like checking my buddy, and then, all right, now check me. But we know that the team's boat or whatever we're talking about, the crew served weapons, I mean, you name it, the helos are hooked up with rappel ropes, all that good stuff is done first. Then you go to you. Because, I mean, you can be squared away, but if the mission stuff that needs to be mission ready isn't done, you ain't going on a new mission. But hey, thank God your weapon's loaded, you know? So you gotta, and I think it happens. I mean, you get called out on. I mean, and when you start that training, a lot of us don't even know what that is. I was fortunate enough in the Marines, which is still a team, but I really was like, I was from that 17-year mark until I think I was 23-ish or something like that. So that was like my learning phase. When I got to Buds, I definitely had a leg up just on, you know, the intangibles and, you know, leadership. Not that I had a lot of leadership, but I would definitely speak up a little bit more in a tactful way, not being belligerent. But yeah, you kind of, I think with anything, I'm sure you guys would be the same. Like, you learn how, like, this is for the team, this is for the team, but also you got to make sure that that team isn't taken away from your family when you're doing certain things too, because that can happen. That had to happen to me, like I mentioned on the last time we did this. So yeah, I think you just learn, but like the bottom line is the team is first, because what's the objective? What's the end game? What does the victory lap look like? What is your mission? And I guarantee you, your mission, it has nothing to do with you probably in most cases, because even if a guy's walking into a boardroom to do a presentation, he hits it out of the park, they're not gonna be like, hey man, good job, Jack, you did awesome. No, you did it for the company behind you that supported you, that got you there, that got that meeting, that has the funds to support all whatever's happening. So you got to look at it that, and it's okay to like give yourself a pat on the back, like, hey man, I kicked butt, I did good, and making sure your fellow teammates say, we did awesome, good job, that was awesome what you did on the right flank over there, taking that dude out. Like, you give those kudos, but end of the day, man, it's about that that overall objective, whatever that may be. And as long as you put your mindset to it and ensure everyone's on that playing field, you're good. But it needs to be the team. Obviously, wrestling, when you're on that mat, you know, it's an individual, and you guys can speak way, way better than I can about this, but it's on there. But, you know, if we're talking about Olympic stuff, what's their overall goal, right? It's the country, I would think, correct?
Yeah, it's USA, man. We're representing our country.
Same thing.
So, like, what is that? Can you elaborate on that mindset that you referred to? And you mentioned parts of it. I know Matt has described it to the guys that he tries to have them. He calls it gray zone, where if you followed Matt's career at all in wrestling, yeah, if like if you follow not all fighters fight the same. Not all, everybody has their own kind of stuff. Matt, if anybody knew Matt, he was going to find where is the absolute line of the rules, and I'm going to take it right there. And I'm maybe not going to cross it where they catch me, but I'm going to take it as far as we can to keep it legal and like really get after it. Like, that was his mindset to keep that kill. What's your mindset, or what do you see? What was your approach?
Are we talking on the battlefield? Are we talking in life? How are we? Because there's
Both.
okay. Battlefield. Yeah, it was just turned on, man. And like I said before, with that ramp drop is savage mode. There is rules of war, but my goal is to make sure I'm covering my buddy's back. He's got mine, and we're getting the mission. If it's a hostage, it's a capture, kill, capture, whatever it is, whatever that mission is, we make sure that that happens. And the mindset is this will, and it was like, this is our objective, and this will happen. Plain and simple, this will happen. And then, fast forward or to present is like, I started companies. I'm like, I will start a company and it will do well for itself. And I failed a couple times, and I'm now have one that's, putting food on the table, doing well. It's keeping people safe. It's a passion. I love it. It's fun. It's not even work to me. So that right there is, and I was like, cause I don't want to work. I don't want to work for anybody. I don't mind working for people, but I don't want to be strapped into that corporate world, where I'm sitting behind a cubicle and from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, I get, and some people are okay with that. Some people like that, like, hey, whatever is for you is for you. That was not for me. I need that leniency to, you know what, I don't feel like working today. And then the other day, I feel like I have to work 16 hours because I'm on to something and this needs to get done. I want to have that liberty to do that stuff. So it's just whatever the mission is, whatever the goal is, you make it happen. That's it. And you don't think of failing. Like, is there going to be little failures in the way? Absolutely. But, just like there's battles in a war, you may win some, you may lose some, but what is the overall goal? Is to win this war. And that's it right there. That's life. Yet there's obstacles and you're going to get defeated by some, but you just need to get back up, trample those obstacles with a different maneuver or whatever it may be. And you keep marching forward. And sometimes you'll get pushed away. Like I told you with sniper school, I got pushed away 3 times and I racked my brain around it forever. Like, how can I miss this by one shot? Because you have to be qualified on the rifle range to get to sniper school. And I was 1 point away 3 times. And I was like so down on myself. I'm like, you don't have it. You want to go try for the SEALs? And I'd hear that voice. You want to go for the SEAL teams? That's way better. That, in my opinion, was better than being a Marine sniper. No, don't get me wrong, Marine snipers. I think you guys are awesome. That's why I tried to do it. But I mean, something pushed me away. And obviously later when I found Christ, I'm like, okay, I got you. That this was my path I was supposed to be on. So doors will get shut, but other doors will get open. You just got to trust it, have faith. And I learned to do that after my stubbornness of 3 decades. So when I was 32, I kind of opened up my mind and, accepted certain things. And it's done well. But my mindset is, and then when you come across that failure, your mindset doesn't change. You take it as a lesson. I'm sure you guys put that out 1,000 times. Like, hey, I'm not going to try that move because I just got choked out or whatever it is. You chalk it up to like, okay, I learned it. And this goes back to what Matt says, that pin drops. He's in here with me. I'm going to take that failure. I just learned, I just got smarter. I got more wisdom, more experience. And now I'm going to apply it from here forward because the past is the past. There's no going back. Sorry, it's not happening. So, and just, you got to have that mindset. There's going to be some failures, but it doesn't mean you lost. I don't think, and some failures, I'm like, man, I won. If I take the Marine sniper to the SEAL teams, I won. I won the war. I lost the battle, won the war. So
Absolutely. I talk about a lot, celebrating our failures in training.
mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I found a way to not do that. Now I got to find a way that makes that work. And there's a lot of ego in that, I mean, I don't want to look bad. I don't want to make a mistake. It's training. This is the time for that. Could you talk about that a little bit more about when it's good to fail and why failure can help us? I mean, you just talked about why failing in sniper school led you to becoming a SEAL, and that's excellent. But in the training process, how important it is to have failures and to learn from those failures.
I'll go forward just to my present. I talked about how I started jiu-jitsu a few months ago, and I told you I did not want to start. I'm like, I just don't want to. My body aches, and 42 years old, but I'm like, that's not an excuse. I'm making excuses, and I'm like, I can't do that. I preach the total opposite. So I'm held accountable just like anyone else. So just, I'm sure you guys know, you go in there, there's guys that have been, doing that sport for years and years and years. And they're really good. They're not even breathing half the time. And all of a sudden you just got choked out 40 times in like 4 seconds. It's like, what? But for me, that is like, okay. And then you just like, okay, after I take that failure and just, tap out, I'm like, what did you do? What can you ask me what I did? What was wrong? And I take that saying, and the good guys, which is, I've really never had any bad ones, it teach me. And then I don't get caught in those, not all the times, as much as I did before. So, just little things like that. I take that as a win, like, oh, okay, cool. That's not going to happen because I'm not going to do this and I'm going to do this instead. So, only reason why I bring up jujitsu is because that's where I kind of am now. I'm starting to like really enjoy it. Over the last few months, it's been fun, but every day I go in to train, I'm failing every time. I'm getting, because I want to go up to the purple and brown belts and be like, hey, like, let's go, let's roll, because it's good to go to someone that just started to see if you're still good and you can do your thing, but I get more learning by being on the losing end of things, because I can just pick brains and what I need to do better. How is this? Would this work? Can you please show me this? But that goes with anything in life, I would think, is like business. I'm sure we could all do this. Look at your career. Like, man, I'm not going to do that. I remember being too pushy with clients. I remember not being too pushy or not pushy enough. I remember my prices being too high. I remember my prices being too low, where I couldn't pay for insurance, these guys, this training, this gear. So it's kind of finding that there's no magic recipe. And if there is, please send it to me. There's no magic recipe. It's just learning as you go, and you're failing all along. You don't see, we fail pretty much every day. Crap, I just burnt this amazing tomahawk steak. I did that like 2 months ago. Family was not happy, but I'm like, called up my buddy that's a steak master, and he's like, you need to put it in the oven for this long first because it's so thick, and then you put, I'm like, okay, cool. So there you go, I just won.
Yeah, I think that's like real marks of wisdom there. I think that's part of, I always think about it as like that. To me, that reflects steps that I think all young men, all young people, men or women, whatever, they go through in life, that we're so excited to have you on here and share these kind of things, because we've learned them because we're old, and we want to share them with people so that they don't have, they can be aided as they go through that learning process too. Because what you talked about, like trying to figure out what's going on in cyber school or whatever, like, I think that's like the wisdom to discern, like that's being able, I think that's part of what wisdom is being able to recognize when is God speaking to you and what's the language he's using, and how do you listen to that? How do you even hear it when it's happening? Well, most of the time we don't even hear that speaking, right? We just say, oh, dang it, I jammed up again and didn't.
You just said it. What method is he talking to me? Because it comes in movies, songs, friends, random strangers, a product on the shelf at a grocery store. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's like, I think that wisdom comes with that maturity, and the maturity brings that mindset of embracing losses as lessons on the way to success, versus the kind of people who internalize those losses and just beat themselves up over it and dwell on it and never move past it. And I think part of that is really dialed in with the ego. Like, I'm a psychologist, like the ego is a powerful thing, and the people who are governed by it, that ego holds onto them too tight, they're going to internalize that failure. They're going to define themselves by it, versus this like growth mindset where you approach the loss as a victory on the way of something that you're learning, like Matt was saying, in practice. And, like, in my understanding from the kind of training you guys go through, so famously intense and rigorous and buds and everything thereafter, that so many people seem to fail because it might be a direct shot to their ego. Like, you might get a bunch of linebackers in there used to winning football games, and you can't, man, that first kick to the nuts comes, or, and you're like, wow, this sucks. I sucked this time. I can't handle this. Versus guys who are used to overcoming those little micro losses. We talk a lot about on the show, trying to get guys to open up on the mat. In competition, Greco's had issues that they've working on, taking chances in matches, going on offense, taking offense, because you got to overcome that fear of failing with a move. And the only way you do that is liberal application and practice of trying and trying and trying and failing and failing and failing and getting over it so that you're good. And now you feel comfortable going after and crushing it when combat time starts. So it's like, do you see that kind of side of the times when guys that you train with or that you've trained, where you kind of counsel them not to go past that tip on the ego and tip over that peak to where now that starts governing how they manage losses?
Yeah, that kind of leads to the pride thing, right? So yeah, I think we, especially us as men, we in general, I'm not saying everyone, in general, when I say in general, probably say 95%, we have that pride issue. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you guys through your career, maybe still, I still fight with it sometimes. And I remember, ways to shoot, how you wear your gear, how you repel certain things. And instead of looking like, is this guy telling me, and this goes right back to Matt in the cage comment that I'll remember for the rest of my life, is this guy telling me how to do things like I don't know? Or is this guy possibly showing me a better way to do things that's safer, faster, easier, that I can retain better? It's kind of like how you look at it. So yeah, the pride kind of steps in with that evil hand and kind of backhands you. And you need to be open to that stuff. But yeah, I've seen and still do see that stuff where individuals don't want to do things because their pride will get struck down. I think that's why a lot of people don't start new things, because they're afraid to be showed up, especially in martial arts. I mean, God, I remember when I first started doing, getting back into it about a year ago. I was like, dude, I don't want to go get smashed, because I know what it's like when you first start out. You're just like a wad of cookie dough, to quote, Fight Club, right? You're just, and then you get formed into this chiseled sculpture. But like, yeah, it sucks, but you just got to swallow that pride, your ego, and just march on. Everyone thinks it's just them. Well, I don't want, okay, all those people that are in the same place you are experience what you just experienced. Unless there's some crazy freak of nature or something like that. They've all experienced, they've been through it, they understand it. And a lot of them, from my understanding, respect the hell out of it. I know I do. And just right now, when new guys come into training sessions, I'm like, oh, let me help them. Hey man, I saw you do this. I used to do this all the time. Don't do this anymore. Like, oh dude, that was actually pretty cool. Because you can still learn from anybody. So yeah, it definitely slips its evil hand in there. And we just got to understand to be mindful of that and recognize when it happens. And it's pretty easy to recognize if you just keep your eyes open and like start thinking about it. Like, just because people are there to help you. They're not, a lot of people are not to act like they're better than you, but they're there to help you. Don't get me wrong. That's reverse sometimes, or they're, those dudes. But yeah, absolutely. I see it everywhere in the security world, all the time. And my big thing is just keep your, eyes open, ears open, and retain what is useful. And because you can discern from what's BS and not BS pretty much. And I'm sure you guys in the wrestling world can do the same thing. I'm sure you guys are, Matt, you've been in the wrestling world for how long, man?
I started when I was 15. So
so a couple of years, right?
35 years.
So I'm sure you're still learning things. I mean, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I'm sure you're still learning things from guys younger than you.
Every day.
I
have an eye now that I see things differently from a different lens as a coach than I did as an athlete. And I totally can understand what you say, because I've owned a gym for 20 years, a fight club, and it's so funny because guys that want to train martial arts, they want to learn martial arts, and they want to get in shape. They want, they come in and they will sit in the parking lot. I'll see a car come for, a month. It'll come in the parking lot, it'll leave. And then eventually one day, sometimes that individual will come in. Or I have a hallway in the gym where people come in before they come around to the desk. It's like they'll hang out in this hallway for minutes, and finally they come in, and they, for some reason, there's this. I'm coming into a fight club that Matt Lindland, Randy Couture, Dan Anderson, all these guys are in this gym. That, if I get on the mat with these guys, they're going to kill me. Well, obviously, but we're not going to start you out there. We're going to bring you in. And the biggest thing that they always talk about was they're so surprised at how welcome, like, come on in,
yeah.
And
Yeah,
then you talk to,
it's it's an intimidating world, hands down. I mean, I've been intimidated before, but it's like it goes, here we go again, dude. Drop the pin drops, and you said he's in here with me. Do you look at it as I'm gonna get demolished, or are you gonna look at it, I'm about to get trained by some serious American badasses? Like there's your switch, right? That's how you think. Like if I was getting trained by you guys, I'd be like, dude, this is freaking awesome. Yeah, I got a bloody nose. I'm exhausted right now. I can't even breathe. But dude, this is so awesome. Because when I go take on the reality of the world, whatever that guy is who's trying to take my girl's purse, I'm gonna beat the crap out of you because I was just trained by these awesome dudes. Like you just got it's in that mind. It's in that mind. Yes, it's intimidating. Okay, yes, we got it. So is walking on the football field. So is going on the wrestling mat. So is walking into a boardroom. But you got to look at the benefits of these things, and there's that mindset thing right there. Boom, another perfect example.
when we were talking a little earlier, I mean, I just listened to a sermon from one of my pastors, and he talked about the three types of people: wise, foolish, and evil. And a lot of times we're foolish and as well as wise. I mean, we bounce between this foolishness all the time. And in certain areas we're foolish,
True.
in certain areas we're wise. And how do we gain that knowledge other than to get in and experience things?
Right.
But I want you to talk a little bit about evil people and the reality that there is evil out there, and that is why people like you, we're so grateful, do what you do to keep us safe, because there really is evil people. And there's a big myth of that evil doesn't exist in the world.
That would be the foolish people that you just spoke of.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you were saying, explain the evilness, and I'm going to give you a little story here. The first, I mean, I know there's evil in the world because I trained up to demolish evil people. And you can just look across the globe of all the women and children murdered for whatever reason. People stealing from people, carjackings, home entry. We can just, whatever you consider evil, divorces, domestic violence. I mean, it continues. I did a target. It was in Iraq. I think it was like my 4th or 5th deployment. And we went in and we were getting bombarded. Like we could hear that there was some chatter going on, that they knew we were coming in. They heard the helicopters. We were coming in. There was a couple like random shots. We just kept moving on because we own the night. We have our night vision. Not a lot of them did. So we were coming into this target, this building. It was just a single structure house, 2 stories actually. And I go into the top room as we're clearing, and there's a gentleman, and there's an AK-47. He's about to pick it up, and I dropped him. And I've never thought to myself, with the individuals that are no longer here, I never really gave much thought about it. Like, hey, you're a bad guy. I'm taking you out because you're trying to kill, X, Y, and Z, and that's not going to happen on my book or on my watch. So it's something struck me really bad. I didn't like it. It didn't sit well with me. So we flew back home, and to our forward operating base overseas. And I went to the intelligence guy. I was like, hey man, like if you find anything, or like when you find from this stuff, because we gathered some intelligence or information, I should say, from the target, can you please let me know? So about a couple hours later, it was after a meal. I come back. He came to my room and he found me. He's like, hey, Eddie, you want to come over to the intel shop? I was like, sure. I was like, you got anything? He's like, oh yeah. So we go in there. He puts in a disc. The old, the CDs. Do we even have those anymore? He puts it in, and there's this dude that I just dropped a couple hours before. And he would, you guys have heard of like KBR, right? Kittlebama Route. They would do all the logistics for troops overseas, like your food, your transportation. They did a lot of, they were a civilian contractor.
They do everything for NASA too.
Okay. So yeah, very,
yeah.
I think,
it's a huge company.
Yeah. Didn't McCain start that or part of that or something? Anyways, but, so they go, he shows me this, and it shows me the dude that is no longer there. And he's taken target practice with these kidnapped KBR employees. And there's people from, I look like Filipino or Thai individuals. They were tied up on these stakes on the side of a dirt road in the middle of Iraq somewhere. and they were doing ballistic testing on them. They were shooting them in the leg. They were stabbing them. They were doing other things to them without getting too crazy on here. And I was already pretty, some would like to say callous. I was already pretty, like, I was like fine in my fate, like with what I was doing on, on the evil thing. But when I saw that, and I could see that a person could do this, because they're laughing, they're joking, and it's just like their demeanor about everything, about what they're doing to these poor guys that are scared crapless. I mean, you just imagine being on the side of the road, getting your semi hijacked, and you're tied up on these stakes, and people are shooting your legs just to see what happens, or they're coming up and they're stabbing you somewhere in your body. So that right there is evil. That right there is very, very, very evil to me, and those people exist. And from that's only one example. I've got many more where I've seen women just brutally just mutilated, just very bad things. There is evil on this freaking planet. It's here in this country. It's very bad. And just one thing that I noticed is, like, I can't believe a human could do this. Just like the joking around, like there's no value for life. And that just like hurt my heart so bad. I'm like, freaking humanity, man. And there was another switch, and I'm like, you will get no quarter from me. Like, it's on, like it's, and it got, when I didn't think things could get ramped up anymore, it got ramped up more, which took me to a new level of, okay, let's go. This is the level you need to be at right now. So yeah, there is evil in this world, 100%. I've seen it in my own eyes, many different countries, and it's disgusting. It's horrible. And the people that don't believe that exists, they would be what you call foolish. And the wise would be the ones that recognize this and protect them and their family, and understand that could be, that is feasible, and do everything they can to stop it, because I can be a victim just like the next guy. I mean, honestly, if we really want to break this down and get into that world, it takes like a 7-year-old to walk up with a pistol, because I would never suspect that, and shoot me, and that was my day. I mean, that's really what you're fighting. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it does happen. Other countries do use children. They do use women. So it's a very crazy world out there, and they use unconventional tactics. Which is why we have unconventional forces in our military for that same thing, that guerrilla warfare type style. So yeah, there is evil. And there's a lot of it. There is a lot of it, a lot of things that you wouldn't even think. And we hear things on the news, and conspiracies or whatever you want to call it. But I will say this much right now: there is evil, and it is in this country as much as it is over there overseas. So yeah, absolutely.
That's very powerful, but we're very grateful, because as much as there's evil out there, there's bravery in people like you who went over there. So just as schmuck civilians over here who haven't served in the ways that you guys have, thank you for the bravery and the courage that you guys went through and drew upon to overcome, and to take that evil head on, because most people don't, and they don't even know about it. But that exists because good people do nothing, and that's you guys were that stopgap who are good people who did something. So thank you.
I appreciate that, buddy. But we volunteered, and it's a passion. You got to the deal with the passion, your purpose. That was both for me right there. It's just and still fighting for this guy. I mean, like, people just don't understand. If I could just if I could take my children and they learn one thing from me and one thing only, I would be like, protect and respect this country, because this country, I mean, and you guys have traveled, I know, this country is the best. It is. It is an amazing country.
So that brings me to a question that I've been wanting to ask. And we talked about this a little bit last time too, but we have a lot of young guys, half of which are, military guys on the national, the world teams, but also our junior teams too, our cadet teams, which are our essentially junior high and high school age kids. But they go and do battle against the world on the mat against their, competitors. And some of them are military, but a lot of them are civilian, and they're young kids, teenagers, 20-year-olds, and growing through that. A lot of them, all of them wear the United States flag on their singlet when they go. and when they compete, when they win, when they lose. And wrestling's a little bit different in their sequencing in that they play the anthem, the national anthem of only the victor at the end of the tournament when they're on the podium, particularly in the Olympics, the Worlds, and whatnot. So I wanted to ask that, coming from your background and the service that you guys have given, because I consider that incredible service to just have lived through those experiences and the struggle that comes with having to see those things, let alone the sacrifices of those who didn't come home. What can you share with us a little bit about what does that mean to you when you see, when any of you guys see, say, our competitors, our civilians out there representing our country, you guys represented us in a very direct form of combat, but when you see athletes or anybody else out there wearing the flag that you fought for, that your friends died for, that you guys sacrificed for, to pain for, when you see that flag carried on the chest or the back of a guy competing, what is he representing that he's not aware of, right? Because when you're 20, there's things that we all just don't, we're in our tunnel vision, you're in your competition zone. What are they not aware of what that means to so many people like you guys? And when that flag gets raised, what would you say to them? Like, what can you share about that meaning?
It's funny, I almost put out a video on Instagram earlier this week for this very thing. First of all, to answer your question, when I see that flag, I get a sense of pride. It is amazing. I mean, there's times I'll be at a game and we're doing the anthem and I'm tearing up. I can't control it. I love it because people don't understand that men and women, when this country was first formed, have fought and died for certain freedoms that we have. They didn't do it for other reasons. I mean, it all comes down to that. It all points back, like, why do you do it? Like, for this country. Well, when you say this country, but why, the things that this country represents, like your freedom to, your right to bear arms, your freedom of speech, your freedom of religion. It's for me not to force anything, but like you get to choose what you're supposed to be, what you get to choose what to be. You get to have a thing called democracy, right? And I mean, of course, we knew this would come up the whole elections. Like if certain things go, if like, the legality of it doesn't go through, then the land of the free, we the people, no longer exist. At least in my mind, it doesn't. Whoever the victor is, it needs to be decided by the people and by the legalness of it. So it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And people don't realize that. And unfortunately, people don't realize that because they're, like you said, in that, that toilet paper roll. We always use this when we're going into the house, toilet paper roll. I'm sure in the fighting world, you can just see this small little part, but then your roll gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And before you know, you got 360 up, down, you got everything. Your vision does. But people don't understand that because they've been in their bubble. So they don't, and that's fine. They get that bubble because of the freedoms that they have from the people that are going over representing the United States of America. And I was at an event Monday night with my woman, and it was for the SEAL Legacy Fund. They help a lot of the foundation. They help a lot of the like Gold Star families. They just do a lot of stuff for individuals. I mean, they're a really good organization. But it was at Globe Life Field up at the Texas Ranger Stadium. And we got up, we put our hand over our heart, we did all the respect to our country. And man, I'm in freaking tears. I mean, I am in tears. I can't help it. It was so bad. I got to start wiping my eyes. And I just start going to my rabbit hole. Like, why do you do this? And I just started thinking about all the men, all my buddies that didn't get to make it home. And they just happened to be behind me on a huge table. There was, all the SEALs that we've lost in this global war of terrorism. And I'm like, those guys, they did it for us back here. Me including, some an American citizen. They did it for me. They did it for you guys. They did it for our listeners right now. They did it for us. And when you lose sight of that, you're no different than anyone else. You're no different than someone to say, you get to go to the store during these hours. This is who your leader is. This is our new law. This is how you do this. You can't do this. You can only have one baby per family, whatever it may be. Like, that's not okay. That's not land of the free. That's not it at all. And people don't understand, if certain things aren't upheld, it's going to go that way. It's not going to happen overnight. But I mean, you can, I mean, this whole COVID bull crap, and that I'm going to call for what it is, bullshit. You can see it right there. You are locked down. You know that we figure this out, and then we realize that no one figured out anything, or whatever your take is. But what happened during those lockdowns, and you can't do anything? A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people slipped into depression. A lot of people committed suicide. You don't hear about that stuff, do you? No, because the media is controlling a lot of people's minds. And not to go down the rabbit hole and hold that one, because that's like a week's worth of conversations that I would love to unleash the beast on. You gotta remember the freedoms that you have, and you have to respect those freedoms. And that American flag, and it might just be, oh, it's just a flag. Oh, it's not just a flag. That flag represents so much of this country, for the men and women, our first responders, our athletes that go overseas, our police force, our paramedics. I mean, our doctors, our teachers, all that stuff. It all contributes to the greatest country on this planet. I get messages on my Instagram all the time from people from England, from Australia, from Singapore, saying, "Hey, I hope you guys figure this out. We the whole world is leaning on you," because people don't understand the the impact our country has on other countries. We lead the way. We're leading the way. We've led the way, and we're going to keep leading the way. And we can't roll over and die. Have we had some failures? Yes, but you got to stay up on that horse, and you got to keep fighting, keep pushing. And there is no giving up, and there is no quitting. Sorry, that's not what you get. And if you do quit, we're going to end up somewhere like, say, China, Venezuela, something like that. And no one wants that. I mean, some people probably do, but the majority don't want that. And they don't see that some of those things are taking place in front of their face. And it all comes back down to that flag, that pledge of allegiance, that instilling those intangible, that respect. Because if you don't got respect, you don't have anything else. And a lot of people, unfortunately, do not respect that flag, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting. So there's my short version.
Well, I think there's a lot of people in the global community that, like you said, definitely respect us. They envy the United States, but there's also leaders that they don't want the idea of freedom to spread, because the people in these other nations, the individuals, not the leaders, but the individuals, they're going to look at our country and go, I want that. I want to be able to carry a gun. I want to be able to say what I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, that's in jeopardy if we don't
It is.
figure this out. And I think honestly that we need to fight hard for those freedoms, just like our founders fought for the freedoms, just like the revolutionary soldiers, said that we want to control ourselves. We want to maintain our own God-given rights and our own inalienable rights to be free men and women. And our country wasn't perfect. We didn't do a lot of things right. We made mistakes. We talked about that in the beginning of the show about making mistakes. Our country's made a lot of mistakes, but we've done a lot more good for this
Absolutely
world than any other country that's ever existed in the history. And I hope this republic is just getting started, and we can continue, and that it's not going to get destroyed by liberalism and progressivism that is really just gaslighting the public and saying, what we're doing isn't right, when we know deep down in our hearts that we do have the best republic and the best constitution of any nation out there.
I mean,
right.
Matt,
I mean, that's why people are coming to this country. They're fleeing others to be here. And you're welcome. Just do it legally. That's all you got to do. It's very simple. I've got many friends that did it legally. Took a few years, but they're American citizens, and the expression on their face when they get that and they're an American citizen is priceless, man. That right there, that's our land. Free. That's land of the free, man. That is awesome.
One of my favorite athletes is he was born in Uzbekistan, and him and his wife got they won a lottery. I don't know how this is, but he won a lottery to come to the United States, and he's a wrestler. He's an Olympic wrestler for Uzbekistan. He came over here, and the way to get citizenship the fastest is to join our military, serve our country. And that's what Ildar did. And to get that opportunity, they said, okay, you got 6 months to learn our language. And this guy learned our language. He learned our customs and loves this country. And those are the people that, I mean, it just warms my heart when I see Ildar wearing that USA singlet, and he's this immigrant that came over here for a better life for his family. Now he's got his wife and his 3 daughters, and they're living the American dream, and he gets to serve this country and represent this country, not just as an athlete, but as a soldier in the Army. And you're absolutely right, Eddie. Those guys that came over here and did it right, they don't take it for granted. They don't want something. They want to contribute something. They want to serve. They want to give. And the people that come over here illegally, they want to take. They want the resources. They want the free education, the healthcare. They want all the things that that America offers, but they don't want to sacrifice for it.
I mean, we've got guys, Matt, and so much of the Greco program is built on that international component of the immigrants that you guys have formed the backbone of the team around, between guys from, Olympic champs from Yugoslavia and Momir Pekovic. You got world champs from Egypt. You got, the Cuban who just defected and came over. You got everybody.
I don't know if Eddie knows that story. So we
sounds interesting. I love it.
Well,
love
this is a great story. And you can relate to this because you've traveled, you've been over the world. You know that these other countries, no matter what, they're gaslighting us and telling us how great it is in Venezuela or Cuba. The people that came from that country. So Alan was wrestling in the Pan American qualification to qualify their nation for the Olympics in 2016. We held that tournament in Texas, just outside of Dallas. And Rick came down and watched, and so Alan had won the tournament the week before, which was the Pan Am Championships. He knows the bracketing, and he looks at it and he goes, "Okay, the Americans on the other side of the bracket. I just need to get top 2. I know I can beat all these guys. I've beat them before." His uncle, who's an American citizen living in Miami, calls him up and says, "If you qualify the weight class, is Cuba going to send you?" Because they don't have the same rights and freedoms that we have in this country. We have a process. We have a congressional act. It's called the Ted Stevens Act that gives everybody fair and legal rights to make the Olympic team. And if there's a problem in the process, like my backstory, there was a problem in the process when I made the team. I had an appeal process, and I went through that process and won the match and ultimately earned my right to represent the United States. Alan didn't have that opportunity. He didn't know. And his uncle said, "You don't know if you're going to get an opportunity to wrestle and represent your country and go to the Olympic Games, even if you qualify the weight, because there might be 2 or 3 other guys that Cuba thinks could do better." He says, "Well, if you don't know, you got 2 options. One is as soon as you get done weighing in, you can get in that car that's waiting outside the venue, and it'll take you to the airport. There's already a ticket purchased for you to fly to Miami from Texas. Or you can wrestle, qualify the weight, go back to Cuba and see what happens." And Alan walked out the doors right after he weighed in, and because the coaches were holding the passports. He didn't even have a passport. Got on that plane and flew to Cuba, married an American citizen, is going through the process. He had an appointment. He's done everything except for getting sworn in. Wow. And when COVID hit and we lost some of our rights and our freedoms, like you talked about, that appointment got canceled. Now he's waiting for that reappointment, and hopefully it's before April, because that's our qualification to make the team for the United States. And he's done everything he can to serve our team this 4 years since he came over here. Every camp I've asked him to come to help work out with our athletes and help, get our team ready. He's been a part of that. And I would just love to see him have that opportunity.
Heck yeah.
To compete to make the team for the United States. And
that'd be awesome.
So
many stories like that, man. Just inspiring stories.
So I have a question for you, Eddie. And if I may, and you definitely don't have to answer it if you don't want
Well,
to.
now I
But
got to answer it because we're on a podcast, man.
well, no, it's all right, man. Hey, man, like I'm used to failure. I need to practice failing more. I can handle rejection, man. I need to build those calluses. But I was inspired by everything that you said about everything that you guys have done and what the flag means to you and what our country means to you. And I remember in high school and college, every time before we had a match, we play the anthem, and like I would get fired up before the matches, not listening to like heavy metal or whatever, but listening to the anthem like still gives me chills. And when I watch it on like uh, you know, television shows, and when I see Matt's guys competing, like it fires me up to where I start warming up. Like I want to get going. And it's, when you talk about that stuff, it was very inspiring. So I want to know, is there a way that we can, is there a way we can honor you guys or some of the guys that have sacrificed through this show of just learning more about it? And I know last time you mentioned one of your best friends that had passed away in service. Can you share with us about him a little bit? Can we honor him by learning about who he was and what he did, so that maybe some of our guys can know about him and what his sacrifice meant, so that when they compete and represent our country, maybe they can know a little bit about the ultimate sacrifices of the people that they're serving.
Yeah, I think that came up in the last one. We were talking about Jason Workman. He was my best friend. He passed away on a helicopter accident, Extortion 17, and I think it was 2009 over in Afghanistan. The reason why he came up on the last one, I think we were talking about mentorship, how like bringing up people behind you and how that important that is. And instead of being that prideful self of like, no, I want everything me, where you got to like spread the wealth, because we want those guys behind us to know more, do better. Just like we want with our children. I don't look at it any different. The people that we're looking up to us, we should be feeding everything we have. And I want them to be better than me, because that means you've done your job, and they should do the same. It carries down, and that's how we get better. If you want to look at stuff like, come on. Look at technology in itself. We'll just use that. Things have gotten better. And the only reason that it's gotten better, I would assume, is people are passing down, learning things and learning from mistakes. But no, he came in when I was at Team 2, was my second deployment. His first deployment, we were about halfway through our workup before deployment. And I remember him walking in, and then there was that second, it's like, dude, please, this is my show. I'm the breacher that, gets doors open, goes through walls with all their demo shotguns, whatever it may be. But I don't know. I was like, no, like I want to feed into this guy. He was a cool dude. Just fed into him. And then like, he was an amazing breacher. We would go to breacher school. I was the honor man at my breacher school. And then when he went through after like training together, he was the honor man at breacher school. So it was just cool to see that. And I might get choked up, and I apologize for that. But the dude was a stud. Like he was a freaking stud. Just like he was just a dude that you could talk to. At least for me, I would talk to him before we go on ops or whatever, and we would just motivate each other. Like we put on some music, just jam out, talk about stupid stuff, and then just get amped up. And then when he passed, his family requested, it was my last deployment, because I got custody of my kids. That last deployment, I actually lucked out to go on it. I escorted his body back to his hometown in Blanding, Utah. And I was with him because so many guys lost their lives on these halos. So our command did like a world tour, or United States tour, of going to all these different cities and have memorial services and all that stuff. So I was with him for 3 weeks, and literally with this casket, had to open it up, get flags, give to families. And I was just like, I was out there with his family, and it like, it opened up my eyes, man. Because we don't realize, and I didn't either until I was in that situation. It's like these families are behind these men and women that go forward, and they're giving it all. They're trusting it. They're allowing their kid to do their passion and serve that purpose for this country. So can you imagine what those families feel when they see the bullshit on media of people disrespecting this country, it almost is like saying your son or daughter died for nothing. I look at this as the same. It's not fair. But I was with his family, and they're just amazing family. They are so strong. Excuse me, so strong. It was just it was powerful to see that. And there's so many in all our services, in cops and paramedics, that do this stuff all the time, and we don't give it to them. I mean, you hear stuff like, death to cops, and I mean, are you freaking out of your mind? Like right there, when I hear that, I want to take a sledgehammer to your forehead. Like, remember the Savage thing I told you went up a notch? That's it right there. So it's not okay. And people, they just don't know. They don't know what they're talking about. They're foolish. They're ignorant. And it's sad, but Jason Workman was a true hero. He did his job. He was always smiling. Even when he was pissed off, he was still happy. He's a good dude. His family is solid. He's got his son Jax lives in Virginia Beach, and looks a lot like him. So I follow him on Facebook. Excuse me, and see that, and it's just good to see that boy being raised and turned into a man. But it still hits you like, dude, he's without his dad, and it sucks. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And that's just our sacrifice. That's what we volunteered for. And you ask Jason, he wouldn't die any other way. I mean, when he took his last breath, there's no doubt in my mind that he was like, this is the way I would go. And I agree. That would be the way I would go with. And all those men on that helicopter probably felt the same damn way, because it was honor. It's honor to serve this freaking country. And it's unfortunate that people don't understand it. They just don't get it. It's just like telling someone, all you need to do is you need to start dieting right, eating right, and exercising. You're going to feel so much better. And that person over there that's overweight and sluggish and has no energy, 2 weeks later, they got a different glow about them. They got this huge smile on their face. And they're like, holy crap, you were right. You were being serious. It's like, no shit, because people have wisdom to give you, and people just don't get it. It's the same thing about this country. They just don't get it, because they don't seek it, for one. Sound familiar? They don't seek it. And so they don't know. They just don't know. They think they know, but they don't know. And there's a pride in this country. You have pride in your home. You have pride in your family. You have pride in your precious car in your driveway, right? There's tangible items. That you don't have that stuff without this country. I'm sorry. It can go the other way really fast. So, but yeah, Jason Workman, freaking stud, hero to me, hands down. He got his call sign tattooed on my arm with all the other boys. So yeah, he's always with me, always thinking about him. True American hero and a legend.
It's a very powerful message, and thank you guys for everything you did. And
our
very
pleasure,
powerful. Built it. It's a big impact on the guys watching here.
Eddie, thanks so much for rescheduling and accommodating us. And but I'm glad we got to do this again. And
absolutely.
And this time I'm going to get it posted and share it with everybody. And I'll send you the link, and
Awesome.
I'll also send you a link to that sermon about the wise, the foolish,
Yes,
and
please.
the evil. And it's my friend Pastor Mark Driscoll, and he's gotten on our Zoom calls and shared with my team about identity and where you get your identity from. And that's a pretty good episode. I'll share those links with you as well.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you again. And
Thank
love
you guys.
to do this again sometime, Eddie.
Absolutely, man. I love talking to you guys. It's always good. You guys took me out on this one, but it's okay. It's good.
No, it's our honor, man. It's truly our honor. Can't thank you enough. And I was telling Matt that I felt like it was I had the most special experience last time when the recording didn't work. I felt like I was treated to this world-class treat. I'm like, oh my God, this was.
Trust me, it's feeding me too. I get it.
But hey, man, if you ever need anything, you're out in Florida area, whatever, hit me up. And
Eddie, where do you live in the country?
I'm in the Dallas area.
Oh, you're in Dallas.
But about to move into farmland because cities are
Okay.
bad for me.
No, I totally understand. I raised my children on 40 acres in the middle of the woods, and we ended up selling that when my daughter decided to go to college, and I took this job, and so we sold our ranch. My kids had graduated high school and moved on into colleges and work life, and so. But yeah, I totally get wanting to get away, be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably even thinking about stuff like homeschooling your kids and
Oh yeah.
stuff. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's happening next year, actually.
Hey, I'm an educator. I'm a professional educator, and I will tell you for a fact the very best students I see in my classrooms in college come from homeschool.
There we go.
But the argument I get back is they don't have social skills. Well,
nah, I don't see that in the
I
students I
get them
see.
into MMA. There's your social skills.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Eddie, one last time, if people wanted to reach out to you or they wanted to follow you and learn more about your journey, what's your contact stuff again for people who might have tuned into the latest side, and where do they promote you?
The best place, like I said, was on Instagram. So it's Eddie, EDDIE.Penney, PENNEY. That's where I post the most. And then for our company is at Contingent Group. So spelled just how the words are. So that's the best.
All right,
place
I'll post
to find out
those
what
in
we
the
got
show
going on.
links. I'll get those posted in the show links. And guys, don't forget to subscribe and hit your notification bell. Thank you, Eddie. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it, man. You guys be safe.
Will do.